Tang variation, knight h3 and g3, is his next opening experiment.
Okay, and Fabi is responding to this sort of like a King's Indian style with the black pieces. What do you think the best way to punish that knight h3 is? Because I'm not convinced this is it. You know, at some point, if black goes for this e4 structure break, the benefit actually of the knight h3 is it's not going to be in the way of an eventual f4 break.
Totally.
The downside is that the g4 square will be really soft and can't be covered with h3, which will mean that the e3 square, which is really nice for black in the event that the structure becomes closed with e4, will be really sensitive. And so that's why Naka's keeping attention.
Called it. Not a knight on g4, but a bishop appears on g4 in order to induce this kind of awkward weakening f3 move. But the benefit of f3 for white is now the knight can... Okay, never mind. He does play f4. Pretty brazen move, but I think Hikaru has coordinated his pieces really, really well. And if you play knight g4 here, that at this point is sort of a one-move threat. White can respond with queen e2 or even f5 there deserves attention. Instead, the bishop comes back to g4, and I wanted to address your earlier question, Casa. Sadly, I actually analyzed one knight h3 because Andrew Tang plays this move a lot in Bullet, and definitely the best way to play against it is not to play c7, c5. You want to play e5 and d5, but you don't want to play it with c5. At this point, I almost want to argue that Hikaru's position is totally reasonable.
Yeah, and it's funny because I would have totally agreed with you. I did prefer queen e1. I think it was really important to cover the e2 square. So somehow bishop e2 and bishop d3 at some point might be a little bit annoying. I actually was familiar with this knight h3, at least to the extent that c5 was bad. So it's funny, we both took a gander at something we probably would never consider in classical chess.
Totally, and great call by you, Casa. There was a really nice tactical subtlety there. I'm just going to rewind for 1 second. D takes e4, double exclaim, because you couldn't take the bishop because of e takes d3, forking the queen and the rook. We don't have to pull up the board. I'll go back to the live board. Just wanted to show what that was all about. It was also possible, by the way, since we have the board up, it was also possible to start with c4, and the engine was pointing out some crazy ideas with bishop takes h3 and bishop c5 check. So this was also possible, but how can you find... and then king h1, queen takes d5, and c takes d3, winning a pawn. Easy stuff. How could Fabi miss that? We go back to the live board.
Just gross stuff. But basically the position on the board now... lucky with for that, because there were a lot of endgames there, if an exchange down, where if he maintained his pawn structure, a healthy pawn structure on the king side, he would have had drawing chances. And so this one now, with the structure being compromised the way it is, it's going to be a lot harder to hold. And I think Naka's going to nestle his king on f3 at some point. He's going to go king g2, king f3. He's going to eventually make inroads on both the queen side and the king side, and it's going to be a wrap.
There's too many pawns on the board. If there were no queenside pawns, there would be very serious drawing chances. But as long as Hikaru can keep at least 2 of his pawns alive, I think that given Black's clock situation, this is a virtually indefensible position. We see Hikaru throwing in that check on g2, driving the king back to f8, and using his rooks, activating them to the maximum, but you see
Hold on, bishop d4. Yeah, I was thinking maybe bishop d4 combination with, or bishop e3. It's, the more pawns come off the board, the better the drawing chances are for Black. So I'm a little surprised that Naka parted with the a pawn.
Yeah, now it's a 2-on-2 on the king side. Now the a pawn is completely inconsequential. I think that pawn can be surrounded and captured whenever White wants it. But look at Hikaru, rook g5, and Black is completely paralyzed. Black is just, there's too many threats here. And he's also dropping a bunch of pawns on the king side. Now it's over.
Yeah, and again, that g5 move really did turn the game from the ease of conversion perspective, because when Black had the pawns on f7, if Black had the pawns on f7, g6, and h7 on the light squares, complementing the dark square bishop, it would have been much harder for White to make inroads. And so this